There's a quote from Amy Hennig's short speech following her Writers Guild Award win for Uncharted 2 where she says, "If we were to chart the progress of the games industry against the timeline of film history, we would just be entering the era of the talkies. We're just still wobbling on our training wheels." And I've always liked this quote because it puts into perspective just how new the games industry really is and how much room we have to improve, to really expand on the horizons of the ideas and genres and the norms that have been established in the industry thus far. Action games don't all need to be dark and gritty, sometimes they can be beautiful and contemplative. And although that idea has started to emerge through the seams of a previously rigid and adamantine formula with games like Uncharted 4 and Horizon Zero Dawn allowing you to take a beat every so often to experience the beauty of the world around you, this is also usually contrasted with the more rough and tough bombastic moments or fights that are more in line with the genre's typical outputs. A game like Ori and the Will of the Wisps does a bit of the reverse. The game is built around fluid movement, beautiful artwork and character models, and a quiet, sometimes haunting landscape into which it incorporates some action-adventure elements through its straightforward but effective combat system, and the same can be said for Hollow Knight. But Kena Bridge of Spirits appears to be carving out its own small niche in the genre. With its full 3D environments and clear adherence to the core mechanics found in nearly every modern melee-based combat system, along with its own expanded suite of interesting additions, Kena looks like it's shaping up to be a quintessential action-adventure game that could stack up mechanically with the best of them, but with its unique music, breathtaking animation courtesy of a team with a background in films, art style, and wonderful little touches like movement and weapon design, it looks as though it'll be equally as tranquil and pleasant to experience as the most stripped back and atmospheric offerings in video games. In the next few minutes, I'm going to go through a lot of the released gameplay footage of Kena as of now, which is about a month before its release, and explain why this game is currently sitting pretty at the top of my list of day one must-buy games, and why it should probably be on yours as well. If you're looking at the same footage I am, you've probably noticed that Kena puts its best foot forward immediately with its art style and animation. It's not an exaggeration to compare the animation and character and world design in this game to a cutting-edge film, considering just how expertly elements like lighting and motion are handled. Coupled with realistic and dense settings born from real-life backdrops, this is a byproduct of a very experienced and passionate team that has been working in the world of animation for years. This kind of solidified to me that my dream of one day starting an indie studio with my brother is getting yeeted into the trash, because this is now the second pair of brothers in the past 4 years to start an indie studio and output one of the most visually stunning products in the industry. And my brother and I have roughly this level of artistic talent, so we're clearly not cut out for this. I think when everything is at such a high level, anything being slightly off all of a sudden looks a bit jarring, and I think you see that very briefly with some actions. Like these light grapple sections, Kena sort of stops in midair before going to the next one, and it halts all of her momentum. It would have been better, I think, to design these sections in a way that accounted for you to carry your momentum forward and grapple to the next thing seamlessly. There's already a built-in slowdown time mechanic with your bow and arrow when you're jumping based on some footage that we've seen, so that would have ironed that out. Same with the double jump, it feels like two distinct motions instead of weaving into one another. But the fact that these very simple and very excusable things are noticeable is actually a testament to how good everything else is, since that's the only reason why it stands out. Your dodge rolls are graceful bounds, you can jump over sweeping enemy attacks. This one's incredible actually. I don't know if there's a dynamic system for dodging where Kena responds differently based on how the enemy is swinging, but if that's the case, that's friggin' awesome. Maybe this is just a coincidence or actually a jump, but the fact that the player wants to dodge backwards and Kena does a backflip over the sweep attack is perfect, and whether it's the game picking the right style of dodge or just a normal animation with convenient timing, the grace and agility of that backflip alone is just mwah, mamma mia. Before I transition fully into talking about gameplay, because that's where my train of thought is kind of heading right now, I wanted to shout out one last thing with the animation, and that's the fun effects and transformations of the characters. Whether it's these little Pikmin things popping out of nowhere, or this incredible looking boss introduction. The way the Rot just shoots towards this thing with so much ferocity and impact and shoots the poor dude back and forth on contact like the Iron Man 3 suits, and you see him reach up in anguish trying to escape, and then his arm collects even more rot rapidly and becomes this imposing force, striking the ground as this creature begins to rise up and continue adding pieces, eventually becoming this towering monster. It's just one of the coolest animated moments I've seen in a game, and this is just from the trailers. I mean, come on. The way you can see the moment that the desperate guy inside is lost and the transition happens into this beast just from sounds and visuals is mesmerizing. From the trailers already, this game looks so ripe with visual storytelling, and I'm all for it. Gameplay wise, the first thing I'm interested in is, does this game actually have iframes, aka invincibility frames? Because I might be wrong, but I think there isn't, and the team is actually doing something more interesting with their dodging. So, quick explanation just in case, invincibility frames are when a character is in the middle of a dash or dodge or roll or what have you, and for a limited amount of time, aka a certain amount of frames, no attack can harm you. It's done so that as long as you time your dodge correctly, you can't get screwed over. It's not very realistic, but it makes gameplay sense. The reason I question if it exists here is because I don't think I've seen footage of Kena actually dodging through an attack. It's always either leaping out of the way to the side or jumping over or flipping over. So I think there's one of three things that could happen. One, and this would make it pretty standard, you have a couple dodge animations for each direction and you have iframes during all of them. Two, and this would be really cool, the dodge mixed with your direction mixed with the type of enemy attack, stab, sweep, swipe, etc. will dictate which of a certain set of animations will play out in order to have Kena actually avoid the attack, not go through it, actually avoid it. And three, there's no iframes and you can only dodge away from or jump over attacks, in which case you have to know which of these motions will actually avoid the enemy attack. This is maybe my personal least favorite, but it can be pulled off well and would ask the player to be more thoughtful of the exact motion of the enemy in order to figure out how to avoid them. While the first thing I mentioned is the most likely, I am hoping that actually 3 or especially 2 is the case, because it'd give the gameplay a bit more of an extra zest than we see in most of its related titles. You've probably seen throughout this video also that the combat is a lot deeper than you might have thought. Not only are there multiple ways of evading, like a side leap, a backflip, and a double jump, but you also have a lot of different ways to attack. You can melee attack with your staff, you can also charge an attack with that staff, you have a light bow that's actually built into the staff itself, and you can target certain weak spots on enemies for extra damage, a system that's in a few games but the most apt comparison is probably Horizon. You have special moves like a beam coming out of your weapon or a charged arrow that staggers enemies. You have this interesting parry type move which shoots out all around you. I wonder just how small of a counter window you have on this, or if it's actually more like a protective shield, kind of like Quen from The Witcher, because you can see that it looks like there's actually a preparation for this counter. And then obviously there's these little dudes who seem to have a purpose similar to the Higgledies from Ni no Kuni. They're either active or passive combat buffs. We've seen them momentarily stun enemies, turn into murderous blobs, and even attach onto enemies, after which you can shoot them and they ricochet the attack onto any surrounding foes. I think these things are going to bring a huge element of variety to the combat, and I hope they have a lot more to unlock as you go along, because the few ways we've seen them being used in the trailers and gameplay have already been pretty creative and interesting. I think people are going to be shocked with just how much freedom you have in the combat of this game. Short of some kind of stance system, this game seems to have everything its melee action competition has and more. I'm really excited to see if the actual feel of the game and the enemy attack patterns live up to the bar set from some of this footage, but if it does, Kena might walk away with one of the better combat systems we've seen in quite a while. The last thing I want to touch on is the storyline slash lore slash fantasy elements, because this might be the thing I'm hearing the least about when it comes to conversations about this game. There's a short clip shown in some trailers that shows some kind of mentor of Kena's teaching her how to be in tune with the mountain and draw on its power to gain the ability to create an arrow out of thin air. And you'll notice the same bluish light is present in a lot of other moments as Kena interacts with her little companions or with the environment. There seems to be a real emphasis on the world and your personal connection to it, and I don't just mean you being entranced by the world they've created, I mean you have some kind of connection to the actual soil and grass and trees and mountains. I feel like this connection has already been conveyed in these trailers, and the game itself is only going to do a better job at that. The soundtrack was composed by a Balinese music group, and that origin mixed with some of the themes we've been given insight into lead me to believe that some of the game's lore will be rooted in the myths and beliefs of these real life areas. Every mountain, every abnormal rock formation, every valley, and every river will probably have some kind of story behind it. These cultures often have myths pertaining to specifically the physical earth and the things we directly see, and I can only guess part of that will seep into Kena Bridge of Spirits. It seems like a great opportunity to explore certain themes and ideologies that we don't see very often in games, and I'm really hoping that that all plays an important role overall. As for the plot itself, we don't know too much about it, but Ember Labs has stated that they're basically making a 45-minute animated film in the middle of this game, and that it's about loss, tragedy, and forgiveness, so I'm expecting some heavy stuff that's really accentuated by the top-tier animation, lighting, sound design, visual design, and fantasy elements mixed with a unique connection between the player and this world. Kena Bridge of Spirits launches on the 24th of August, and while I did a bit of speculating in this video, the bits and pieces we've seen of the game that are clear displays of some of its most important elements are more than enough to convince me that this game has a chance to be something truly special. August and the rest of July is kinda stacked with indie games, some of which we've been waiting on for years and look seriously incredible, but personally, Kena stands out to me as the title in that time frame that excites me the most. And with it being a little unclear where Little Devil Inside lands regarding the remainder of 2021, save for maybe Lost in Random and also Death's Door, although that should be released by the time this video is out, Kena might just be the indie game to look forward to for the rest of this year. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this game and if you're excited for it and what your expectations are. If you're new and you watch to the end, consider subscribing. I make a lot more stuff on indies and on AAA games, discussion videos, analysis videos, outlooks, general topics, everything. I do everything. So check out the channel, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Peace.